UNC Class 82. I won't hold that against anyone who's not a UNC fan. Please, phones off, stun, silent, whatever works for you guys, okay? But not on. You'll have plenty of chances to ask questions, take pictures, and make notes. Martin, you are?
Justice.
Justice?
Yeah.
Nice to meet you.
Kyler.
Kyler?
Yeah.
Kyler. Hi, nice to meet you.
Griffin.
Griffin, pleasure.
Abby.
Abby. Hello. I know you. You have to shake my hand. Tell me your name. I won't remember it if you don't tell me.
Emily.
Emily.
Aaron.
Aaron, nice to meet you.
This is Aaron.
Really? Perfect. I might even be able to remember those.
Sarah.
Sarah, nice to meet you.
Sorry.
Nice to meet you. Hi. And so I introduced myself to you all today because not only am I new to you, but when you walk on set, the first thing you do is hi, and introduce yourself to everybody and figure out, are they the grip, the gaffer, the hair and makeup person, the camera department, the director, producer, etc. So we're emulating a set a little bit today so that there's some of that going on. Okay, you're coming into the second part of this discussion, and we filmed the first part, so you can go back and hear all the intense lighting theory stuff that I threw at the poor folks in the early class and glazed them over really good. And we're doing a little more hands-on practical work in this one. And we're talking about, this is really what Mr. Gett asked me to talk about, which is three-point lighting, which is how to light traditionally an interview. Okay? Just so you know, I have been working in the business 40-something years. Did a lot of documentary work for Discovery, TLC, the BBC, the networks, etc. And so I've lit a bunch of interviews in a bunch of places in my life, and something I'm real comfortable talking about and teaching. So we'll move straight into it, and feel free to ask questions as we go. But I'm going to jump into some concepts surrounding lighting. Some of this is going to overlap a little bit into camera, but not a whole lot. But don't be afraid to ask a question or two if you want to understand how any of this relates to camera, because they are mutual. You have to have lighting that works for the camera, and you have to have camera that works for the lighting. There's mutual stuff going on. Okay. Okay. Three-point lighting. It's a really simple name because it's a really simple concept. 3 lights, right? 3 points of light. Key, fill, and back. Sometimes the backlight might be called the edge light. There's a lot of different names for edge lights depending on how you use them. Okay? The key light is key, primary. It's the primary source of light on the subject. And the fill is controlling the amount of shadow area on the side opposite of the key. And we'll kind of I'll show some of this to you as we go. Okay, who wants to be the lighting subject? Anyone comfortable being in front of everyone else and having me talk about you? You're comfortable with that? Drag your chair right here. And it's Kyler? Okay, what do you know? I got it right. Only because my son's name is Tyler, and it's close enough to my son's name that I can remember. I'm going to have you look out here, right next to the camera. Perfect. And Kyler is going to be our scientist today, and we're asking her about some sort of nuclear physics stuff. She's one of the most renowned people in the world in the study of this thing, whatever it is that we happen to be talking about. And we want to make her look really intelligent and sharp and very capable. And we would worry about that background later. Right now we have a small room in which to work. But if I was working with some university professor, maybe we'd be in their lab. Or maybe if they were a famous author, we might be in the library at their university, okay? And I walk into a space, and usually this space is prescribed to me. Maybe I get some voice in that, but oftentimes the producer, the director will say, we're shooting it here, okay? Awesome. This is what I'm confronted with. So now I need to figure out how to make a compelling visual that people want to look at and at the same time work with all of the fixed parameters that surround me. Where's the light coming in? What's going on? Etc., etc. So we're going to start with one thing, and we're going to do this. We're going to turn these off. Okay? I know it's dark. You can just stay focused on her for a second. So we need some light on Kyler, the scientist, to make it look fascinating. And because overhead fluorescent lights, I can't control them, right? I want to do something more. So typically, I'll walk into a space and figure out, what am I stuck with? Okay, and how can I figure out that frame and make it look interesting? If y'all look at Kyler's face, you can see from this window out here, there's this nice, big, soft wrapping source coming around her, right? And it's attractive. It actually separates her a little bit from the background. The background's darker than her, right? I want light to focus us on her, okay? And so that could be a window, right? Light coming in through a window. But in this situation, it's just another room, right? And it's wrapping around, and it's an indirect soft source. Soft sources tend to look pretty good on people, just in general. It's an attractive way. So I go, okay, put that in my back pocket. That's my fixed source. In here, I was able to turn everything else off, and I can control this space. Okay. So I go, okay, well, awesome. I'm just going to cheat and look in your frame. Okay, so Kyler, why don't you slide that way about, and come towards me about, great. Y'all can't see it, but I just pushed her off to the edge of the frame, sort of similar to this my very bad stick figures. I'm no artist, at least with drawing. But that kind of is what the frame looks like. We're going to start with a hard light as our key. This is not where we'll end up, but we're going to play with some things as we go because we've got plenty of time to talk about this. This is going to be bright, so you can do it that way or you can just look away. And you're always thinking that you're looking to an interviewer who's sitting here. You're talking to somebody there. So first things first, we'll start with this, and then we will do this, put it in full flood, and sorry, that is a lot of light, I know. But she is now the brightest thing in the room. Would everyone agree with me?
Yes.
There's no disagreement over that, right? And if we look at that on camera, it's actually, the camera adjusted nicely. It's in auto mode, right? But it's pretty, there's a couple things I look at. It's pretty harsh shadow here, right? Real dramatic and hard shadow. But that's not necessarily awful. I can actually make that shadow sharper, right, by focusing this light. This is something we talked about in an earlier class. And that's even brighter on her, but it also allowed me to take more, instead of looking at her, watch the background for a second. See how the background there's more light on the background? So now I'm doing a balancing act between focusing light on her and focusing light on the background. So we're going to leave it right there, just in the middle for a second. I want to show you a couple other things we can do. We're going to use a little diffusion. This is a way to make a hard light softer, okay? And if you think about it, looks about like a piece of a shower curtain or something. Does everyone see what that did to her?
Oh, yeah.
Right? So most importantly, look at the shadows. That's and how the shadow moves around her face, okay? So I'm going to take it off. Watch your eyes. So look how dark that shadow is and how sharp the line on her cheek right here. Sorry to make you into a model. But right here is a nice sharp line. Whoops. And that sharp line is the nature of the shadow, right? It's the shadow has the darkest spot and then there's space around it. So when I put this on here, you'll notice not only does the shadow get less defined, but sort of the nature of the shadow changes. It becomes, it's smoother. The line between brightness and darkness gets smoother, and that we would call that transmission, shadow transmission. So now that's one possible way of playing with this key light. Okay, so when I started in the business, this would be about the tools I had. I had one hard tungsten light and I had some gel. Okay, Fortunately, things have gotten better over time. And I'm going to go to a next step right now, but we'll just look at that. Now, there's a couple things that I want to note. Your glasses, do we have a flare in her glasses? We do, right? Zoom in real tight for me. So if you're looking right here, so y'all can't see it, but for folks looking at this on the camera, I'm going to switch this off real fast. Bam, see how the little glow in her glasses goes away and it comes back? This is what would be considered a problem in my business because her glasses have a reflection. That's normal. And there's one of the rules of thumb is angle of incidence, angle of reflection. In other words, where the light comes in and hits something and bounces back, that angle in is equal to the angle out of how the light hits. So if I want to try and get rid of this, and I can see it really well from here, but if you lean in to right here, can you see in her glasses just like a greenish glow? You see what I'm talking about? Yeah. So, and that would be distracting to the viewer. They'd be going, why is there that little green glow? What's going on in her glasses? That's crazy talk. And because when you talk and move your head and gesture like any normal person would as they talk, that's going to bounce around and your eyes are going to go with that, right? So I might cheat by bringing that up a little higher. Did that solve it? Made it better. If you drop your chin a little bit, yeah, it goes away completely. Okay, so I wear glasses too. I just happen to have contacts in. So yeah, if you can live without your glasses, you have no idea how many times I've walked up to someone and said, "Hey, can you live without your glasses? Because I can't fix this." And they go, "No one will recognize me." That's one response. Somebody may say, "No one will recognize me without my glasses." Other people will go, "I'll look like an idiot, like I can't see. I can only see 4 feet in front of me, so talking to you will be too difficult." Other people were like, "Sure, no problem, I just read with these." And off they go. So there are multiple ways to solve the problem. So I know you're laughing, but trust me, this is a big deal in my world. And so try and solve problems in different ways sometimes. But this is good. I needed a problem to solve. It's the bottom of my list, and we'll work on what we can do with this light. Okay, next thing we're going to do is we're going to look at a different type of light on her. Okay? And we're going to use this soft light that we have here. And this light will give us a bigger source and a softer source than what we had from that other light. I'm going to put it about in the same place, okay? Roughly the same spot. But that's a lot easier on your eyes, isn't it? Okay, now, if you look in her glasses for me. Way bigger reflection, right? It's a lot more obvious because it's a big source. But let's first of all look at the light. And it's also more, you see the green reflection. It may not even be prominent from your side. It is just barely. It's up in the upper corner. Yeah, but because this light is less intense, the reflection in her glasses is less intense. Okay, so now we're starting to cheat and get into the world where, maybe we can live with this problem. Also, the other thing about this is, if you guys remember the shadow transmission on her face before to now, I know you guys can't see it, but if you want to sneak around or watch the video later, you'll see that this is a much more attractive shadow transmission. It's like she's already got fill coming in. And we're going to close this door for 1 second so I can really show them what's going on. Some of that fill is coming from outside our world. Did that change enough on the camera that you could see? Yeah, okay. So now we're just looking at the one source, right? Instead of that kind of nice, useful thing out there that we'll come to later. So here I have a key light, and I'm assuming that this is where I'm going to keep it, okay? It looks attractive on her. There's a couple things going on. I'm looking at how she's going to look on camera, where people part their hair. Some people have more symmetrical faces than others, so they look better from one side or another. And I'm talking to a famous scientist who's won a Nobel Prize. I didn't just go up and go, "Hey, dude, look at me. Yeah, no, you're better from this way." That's just not what I say, although I may think that, right? And so I kind of make these choices as I walk into the scene and think about how I'm going to film this person. And that ties into what am I going to do with my lights. I want to have a key light in 3-point lighting, and I typically want to have it about 30 degrees off the camera, one way or the other, and about 20, 30 degrees above the plane. If there's a line here and you think about a line this way, you know, that's the angle, right? So this light could go up a little higher and still be appropriately in the world of what would be attractive. Okay, so now we're looking at Kyler, who's being a good sport, hanging in there. And we go, okay, awesome. How well does she stand out from the background? If you just look at the brightness of her face versus the brightness of the background, I'm stuck with a white wall. In the ideal world, that wall would be further away and it would be a different color. Okay? But we don't have that option in this room. And that's actually okay because a lot of times that's what I walk into. So how do I, with light, control that? What can I do? There are some tricks. Assuming the key light stays in the same place, right? We'll just leave that door open for a second. I can do something like this, and now I can sneak some shadow in on the wall, right, behind her. See how I'm darkening the wall, right, behind her? It's just, usually we would use a stand to hold this, not let it fall on their face, you know, not cut too much off of her face, but somewhere in there. And then I could also do it by going on the side, like this, right? That's another way of shaping the light. Okay, you can see on that back wall, do you guys see multiple shadows as I move this flag, right? Can you see the multiple shadows? It's because of this grid on this guy, right? The grid is great, it helps control it, but it also produces different columns. I think of these as columns of light. And so you get multiple shadows. And this is similar to what might happen if you're using an LED light that had a lot of different little single lights in it. But I can pinch this down, and maybe if I box it from both sides, I can make it take enough light off the background to make it go away.
And what is that called?
A flag. Or a solid, but just a flag. A flag is a general term referring to any fabric on a metal frame that you're holding up with a stand. And I might say to my gaffer, hey, get me a 2x3 solid and put it on this side, which would mean take that. It's a black being a solid, 2x3 being the size of it, and I want it here. And he would know what my intention was. There are different sizes. Give me an 18x24, 4x4, boom, 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 all with different. But you're always trying, with a black solid like that, you're trying to control spill, how much light's bouncing around in your space. I'm going to try and control spill a little differently. I'm going to push this light further around. Now, I can really keep it off the back wall real easily. See how much came off the wall just by moving the light, right? Now, is that too strong on Kyler? It's not so bad. I'm kind of looking at it going, well, that's kind of nice and dramatic. Now the back wall's dark, right? Is it looking better in the camera to you? Mm-hmm. Yeah? So the back wall's dark. She stands out nicely. I could sneak my flag in now on this side and flag that off if I have enough time, right? So that's something to do. So maybe I'm happy with where my key is. Maybe I'm in a comfortable space with looking at my composition and where that key goes. Okay, so we have set up what I would call a long side key. Why is it the long side? Because, that's very good, right? So if I look at this picture right here, right? The typical rule is the key follows the nose. So if you look at where her nose is going in frame, the key light is out here somewhere, right? Key follows the nose. This is a traditional thinking. It's, Dutch painters. It's been around forever, okay? So it's an attractive spot to put light on people. Key follows the nose. And that's called a long side key because if you look at the frame, it's over here on the long side of the frame, right? Now you can do a short side. Nothing wrong with the short side key, and we're going to look at that real fast. short side keys have some wonderful things, like glasses reflections go away. We're going to do this really fast. I'm going to put the light in just the worst possible spot. It's sort of still attractive, but sorry, right in front of you, yeah. And then now, if we go over here, I have way less reflection. I still am catching a little. But if I swing off camera, come look at me. Are you still getting the reflection, or is it gone?
No, it's gone.
Yeah. So, angle of incidence, angle of reflection, right? So think about it. This light is going into her glasses and bouncing off at the angle that it's coming in at, right? So it's coming down and across and it'll continue down this way. So if somebody's sitting here, yeah, if you actually lean down here this low, you can see that light in her glasses just it's perfect, right? But what I want to do is hide it from the camera. So I'm deflecting it away from the camera. The bad thing about having the long side key is that we're actually shooting the reflection back into the camera. But me personally, I'm not a huge fan of short side because when you go back and look at this tape, you'll see it doesn't isolate people as well from the background because you're blowing light in on the same axis that the camera's looking at them from. So the camera's coming in here and this light's coming in from essentially the same axis. Real hard to control what's hitting the background. So if you have a deep space, short side keys are awesome for bald guys who have glasses. Okay, I'm just putting it out there. Scientists, the Nobel Prize winners, oftentimes are bald white men sitting in laboratories, and so a short side key comes off being useful. So, and it's not a preference, but if you've got a room that's deep enough and you've got a lot of interest behind it, it's an okay way to do it, okay? But I prefer generally to always work with a long side key. That's just preference more than anything else. So we were kind of happy with where this was. Was it about right there? Something like that. And maybe panned a bit more like so. Fabulous. Okay. We got our key. We're happy with our key. We like what it's doing. Now we need to establish both a fill and a backlight. Fill is all the lights coming in this side. Okay, it's coming in opposite the key side. Can you set the exposure on this so that it's locked and doesn't change? Okay, that may be too tough a question.
Right now it's on auto, so you have to figure out how to put it on manual. Right.
If it's too hard, I'll talk through it, and you won't be able to see it in the tape later because it's going to auto, right? But the thinking of it will be good enough. Okay, so key side's placed. Now we want to think about how dramatic do we want this to be. Behind you is a big card that's got a black side. Will you just pull that out for me? Yeah, that guy. Pull it out, and I'll come over there and grab it from you. Yeah, super. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to do a little work here to just kind of help. So if we look at Kyler and we look at the fill side of her face, I can do this, right? And I can walk that card in. See how that evens out the ratio on her face? Can you see past me okay? Without seeing my bald spot. Can you guys see? Okay, stand up if you need to see what's happening on her face. Don't be shy. Feel free. So, right, that now I'm getting this real profound key, and then if I dip this down, you can see the change. You can see that light walk right in, right? Now, that's a pretty neutral, that would be nice in the yearbook, right? It's a nice, attractive, fairly neutral image. But let's just say our scientist is kind of dark matter kind of guy and is into really sort of, we want a more dramatic thing going on, right? So now we come in with this negative on this side, and what we're really doing is we're taking all this bounce that's on the floor and we're making it go away, right? Now, if you look at that, way more dramatic, way more murder mystery, cop show, blah, 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 right? You guys agree? Okay. Do me a favor, hold this for me. Okay, we're going to do a little thinking about what we call ratios. Does anyone ever hear the term key fill ratio? No? Key fill ratio is exactly that. How bright is one side to the other? Okay? So we're just going to see if I can turn my meter on. Okay, so I'm going to take a meter reading on how bright. We're going to make this faster film so we can get a better reading. Anyone ever use a light meter? Anybody else?
Only the darkroom kids.
Only the darkroom kids. Okay, so you may have heard of key fill ratio. So reading off of this light on her face, 5.6.5. That's with 800 speed film at 24 frames per second. Okay. Now, if I protect this from the key and I read this side, I can read that. Okay, so that is just barely almost a 2.8, right? Just very top end of a 2. So ratio is 2.5 stop, 4.5 ratio between the two, because each stop is twice as bright, right? So a 2.8 to a 4, twice as bright. 4 to a 5.6, 4 times as bright. So it's a 4 to 1, 4 to 4.5 to 1 ratio between key and fill. So you take that guy and lay it down on the floor for a second. Just let it be. Yeah. So the key side's not changing, but the fill side will change a little bit. We'll do it again. Let's try it one more time. Okay. Wow. So almost a 4 here. So even just taking that away brightened it up, and you can see on her face it's a less dramatic look. And then get you to do this for me one more time. If you'd hold it right about there. Super. And same thing. How much light is that popping in? I don't believe it, so that's why I'm taking it again. Ratios are hard. Yeah, so that's almost a 5.6. So now we're in the land of barely a 2-to-1 ratio. And it looks nice and flat. It's very attractive, et cetera. The only thing I would probably do if I was going to change from a portraiture point of view is give her some more eye light. I'm a big fan of eye lights. We'll play with those in a minute. Okay? It's actually in a light that's not in the standard part of 3-point lighting. So let's assume that's going to stay there for the moment, and conveniently we have a stand available for us. So you don't have to hold it the whole time. There we go. And yeah. If you want to put that right behind it, just so that it'll hold it up. And
I figured it out, by the way, Martin.
Which was? Oh, how to? Oh, yeah, we can do it at some point. Okay. We can do it in the next one.
All right.
Come on in. We'll come up just a little bit more. We'll use this handy clamp from our friends at the Home Depot to make it all stay in one place. Okay, I could do that with a light. Okay, there's no reason I couldn't fill her with a light, but I'm not doing it because I want to show a lot of different technique, and I'm kind of limited on all the tools that I would play with in here. So this gives, a bounce card actually gives you an amazing amount of control. And I was asked to show this. So you guys have seen, you have these here, yes, right? Has anyone, no one seen them? Okay, so this is what you have as a bounce. They spring out like so. They have a neat little cloth tab, and you can do sort of the same thing, right? Boom, just like that. Now, if you use the other side of this, the gold side, you'll get a little bit of warm. Your bounce, can y'all see the difference on her face? Yeah, that nice golden suntan glow. Ooh. So, and again, that's given you a difference in, obviously you can play with the light in a lot of different ways, different colors, etc. So, it's all good. Hey, it ain't my work, Okay, so bounce, you got a lot of possibilities. White cards are cheap. I mean, piece of white paper on get a cardboard box. I've been in Africa and shooting an interview with a guy out and it's like what am I going to use as a bounce source? We drove the Land Rover up next to him. It was a white car, and we bounced white light on him, and it worked. It was great. It worked fine. I've been on the same shoot, and we're interviewing somebody inside a hut, and it was dark, but you could see little pinholes of light all the way through that bounce the stuff that's behind him, which is construction stuff. We had something similar to that, a big foil, like a warming blanket, those, and we laid that out on a big flat surface and bounced a bunch of light in. So bounce is a great way to move light around, and it's the same color temperature, harkening back to the earlier talk if you listen to that. So you don't have to worry about having your light be all the right color temperatures. Okay, so it's a nice way to work. It's easy, it's pretty fast, and if the sun goes behind a cloud, guess what? Everything gets a little darker and moves with the sun. So if you're working outside, it's great. If you're working inside, it's good too. Okay, so we've got key, we've got fill. We've decided for a fairly neutral ratio on our nuclear physicist. Now we wanted to put some separation on them. And there's a couple ways to do that. Separation being a way to move them off the background to make our eyes focus on our star. Okay, so I'm going to play with. I'm really dealing with backgrounds in the next setting, but I'm going to show you one fast technique that you can use, and we'll do more with this in the next one. But because this is such a good space to show it in, I'm going to show it real fast. So what you've all seen this. You've all seen what I call the halo look or the angel look, right? And it's a way to put a little light on a background. I'm going to try. I think my best spot to hide it is right here, and to create just a little teeny pop of light back there. Can you see the wall behind her? I guess you can. Yeah. If I had a dimmer, I could do more with this. But so if you're looking to your spot, does that kind of create just a spot right behind her head? Let me get a look at this. Okay, I want to pan it. Without getting it on her. Okay. And right, so now look, so y'all can't see it, but if you get right out here, and I encourage everyone to just come stand and look, right? And yeah, feel free to stand right next to the camera, and then I'm just going to pop it on and off. So wow, I don't know if you have a sense of it, but she comes off the background when we create a new plane. So by creating just this little pop of glow behind her, we're creating another plane of light, and causing your eye, the viewer's eye, we're essentially converting three-dimensional space to two-dimensional space. That's what we do with cameras, right? And so creating planes helps focus the viewer's attention where you want it to be. Okay, so this background trick is one thing. I could put colored gel on this. I don't have the right color gels here at the moment, but I'll show you an example. Something close. Let's pop that up. So the blue now, it looks real scientific and cool, right? That's just because blue is. And there's a lot of color theory stuff behind this, which I'm not going to get into, but it also darkens it, but also makes it, adds another layer, a different kind of layer of color. Blue your eye tends to believe that something's further away when it's blue because light, there's more UV light and stuff further away, yada yada. So this tends to make you perceive stuff as further away. If I was to use warmer colors, I'd actually pull that wall closer. Okay?
And maybe they should peek a little at the.
Yeah, feel free to look at the
the monitor over there. Look at the viewfinder too, guys.
Yeah, if you want to lean over, go for it.
You can flip it out so that more people can see that viewfinder.
You mean I'm not opaque? I'm not transparent?
You guys take a look at the viewfinder. Okay.
Yeah.
You guys look at it over there. Justice,
okay.
can you see it?
So with it, without it, without the light.
Now do it again.
So that's straight up with the light. Add some color. So that's just a simple trick on a background. Okay.
Do you see how effective that is in terms of changing what you want to visualize there?
Okay, so we're going to make that go away for a second because I'm going to reuse this light for something else. Because it's always a game of how many tools did I bring in and how much time do I have. Okay? So now, getting back to our original key fill back, right? We got the key, we got the fill, and the fourth layer here is background, which is what I just showed you, and I did that because I'm clicking along and we had some time, and this is a really good spot to I've shot in so many bad conference rooms where you only have this much space and there's an enormous table, and how do you get a decent frame and yada yada. Little tricks like how to light up backgrounds and stuff can really save an interview and make it look more interesting than it might be. So the other thing that we need on our subject is we can separate her off of the background with backlight or edge. We call it edge generally. We'll use that as a like a verb. I need to edge her. So we need to figure out a way to slide some light in from behind. We're going to start with this door because it's the easiest source I have. Did that show up on camera? Yeah, so here I have this nice big, actually slightly blue light source out there, okay, because those are probably, push that all the way up and for me if you don't mind. So those fluorescents are most likely like about 4,000 color temperature, and everything in here is a little bit warmer. As long as it'll stay, don't worry. Yeah, perfect. And that helps us. I mean, it's a little better, but I would like to get some more separation on her. I would like her to have more punch. So I'm going to take this little teeny light right here. So just so you know, that's probably a 1,000-watt bulb in there. Okay, this is 150, and that bulb there is a 650. Just to give you some sense of the strength of these lights relatively to each other. And I'm going to just sneak in a little bit of edge on her. So you want to flip that viewfinder around and let everybody see one time? Once you get it framed up and you're in a good spot. There we go. So here we go. Off. And I'm going to really fix it. So we're going to walk it through the different things that we can do. So this is no edge, right? No edge at all, right? Nothing except what's little bits bouncing out this wall, but there's no edge. I'm going to open the door. I'm going to get out of the way. And you can see a little bit of edge coming in, right? But it's a big soft source, maybe not ideal. And then this pop,
yep.
Really distinct, nice hard edge, really, come over there and look at it. So you can see how it like draws her shoulders. If you look on the, yeah.
Do you want me to take it off and take it on again?
Sure.
Okay.
Just give it a good squeeze. Here you go. And then see, even some of it's going down the front. So snap it on for me. See, you see how it's coming down the edge, top of her hair, really makes her whang, jump right off of the background, right?
Everybody see this?
I actually feel like
on.
It's actually not bad. It's a little too close for me. I would love that light to be through that wall 1 foot. I don't have that power. So I might start using some modification on it, right? So some of that, you saw me use the diffusion earlier. I could use something like this. This is probably too heavy. I have diffusion that's a lot lighter than this. But see how that changes?
Emily, can you show this?
Flip it around for us once you're set. Yeah, there you go. So that's full, and then that's with some diffusion. So we still have some edge, but it moderates it. That's probably too much off. I mean, I really would like to have something that's halfway between the two, right, in my ideal world. And they make, this is a piece of 216. I could use a piece of 250 or a piece of Hampshire as 8 different flavors to play with that will diffuse it some. We'll live with what we got for right now. Okay, so we got a key, we've got a fill, we've got a backlight. Cool. So we're theoretically set, right? We have what would be considered a nominal lighting setup in my world. I've done the minimum amount of work that I might do to make something appropriate. Okay? Something that I can sell. That's the better way for me to say it. Because that's what I do. I sell images for a living. I show up on your shoot, and you pay me, and I make it look nice for you. And so that's what I'm selling. Now, if I had more time, all my friends in the business will tell you I will obsess. And I will continue obsessing until I get it really the way I want it. So, first thing I'm going to do, we're going to jump ahead a little bit, and we'll do more background stuff later, but we're going to play with a little background right now. I really liked that blue behind her. Did you guys like the blue behind her? Was that something that worked for everybody? Yes, no, maybe so?
I thought it was nice.
Yeah? Okay. So I'm actually using, instead of theatrical gel, I'm using a piece of 1/2 and a piece of 3/4 color temperature blue. And CTB, color temperature blue, moves light from 32K. You guys know about color temperature of light? Okay. Don't know anything about it. Okay. Light comes on a spectrum. We all know, we've all seen a rainbow, right? Red, green, blue, blah, blah, blah. Okay. That is the visible spectrum of light being broken out. Okay. But there's another way of thinking about it, and light it's measured in color temperature. 3200 it's degrees Kelvin, don't ask me why. I actually probably do know the reason, but it was in the deep, dark recesses of my mind. And 5600 degrees Kelvin, so it would be, in the science world, it'd have a big K out there. It's a way of measuring. It has something to do with black bodies, and there's a book, Wikipedia. So these lights are tungsten, 32K light. Okay, fluorescence overhead, probably 4,000, 4,200. So they're somewhere around here. Daylight, the sun, 56. The sky, just the sky, no sun, maybe 8,000, 9,000. Right place in the world, 10,000. Very blue. Light gets bluer or warmer. That's our perception, okay, of it. And so when I add this stuff to this light, I shift it along the color spectrum, okay? And that's what CT for color temperature means. CTB, color temperature blue, CTO, color temperature orange. I'll show you an orange one in a second. And orange makes it warmer or more tungsten-y. Okay.
Are you all too young to remember getting pictures back from the lab, and they might look really orange or they might look really blue?
Yeah, they're too young.
Yeah, I used to be able to tell this to my students, but that's how you can understand the difference between.
So, this is a special type of plastic. It won't melt. These lights are real hot. Okay, so now we have some blue behind her. How are we looking? Is it looking kind of quasi-interesting? It's not enough. It's not strong enough, is it? The light's not strong enough, huh? Okay, great. So that gel eats a lot of light. So we're going to pull these screws out. Whoop, without burning myself. How'd that do? Better, huh? Mm-hmm. Maybe a little higher. I don't want it to get on her, but I want it to fill up the background a little bit. Let me turn it this way real fast. That's better. I think I'm going to throw a single in for now, just for grins. Okay, so that's an interview, right? That's 3-point lighting, bing, 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 plus a background. Now, there are a lot of things that we can still do with this. I can warm up this foreground light. I'll do that for you. We'll take a look at that. But does anyone have any questions sort of while we look at this, and any thoughts about if you wanted to make it look different somehow?
Think about your own interviews. You know, your subjects, your location.
The eye thing?
You
In
said there was an eye thing.
Eyelight? Eyelights. Good. Thank you for reminding me. We'll play with that in a second. We'll have to steal a light, which will be stealing this edge light, and we'll put it in there. But eyelights are another thing. So other stuff? Other questions? Eyelight? I make a list right now. We'll go through them all. Because y'all have plenty of time. This class is over when?
We will not be out until 10 to noon, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we get 40 minutes.
Yeah.
40, yeah.
They do announcements at 11:40, I think.
Oh, do we have to give this room up for people to talk? To film? To do the...
No, not until lunchtime.
Oh,
Yeah,
awesome.
I mean, and we don't really have to give it up. They're just going to record the news in here, right? At the Wolf TV News.
I think I'm going to shoot in here too after they do that.
Okay, maybe you'll have to play around with some of that.
We'll figure it out. It's okay.
Okay.
So eyelight, other stuff? Eyeline. I mean, we can jump into some camera stuff a little bit if we want to.
So remember, guys, you're going to be able to use some of this. We don't have these smaller Fresnels, but we've got some bounce. We've got some, the soft lights. So think about particularly your interviews. Who are you interviewing? What kind of look do you want in terms of backgrounds? We can also ask questions about shooting, outside, shooting interviews outside if we want.
Other than the backlight, when using the green screen, everything will be the same.
Okay, green screen. Good question. And I left green screen for the afternoon discussion because I was going to talk about backgrounds. Yes, you're exactly right. Light a 3-point lighting setup. We turn this guy off, right? And on the green screen, you just want to have it lit as evenly as possible, so you don't have any dark spots or real bright spots. You guys pull your green screens in Final Cut?
Yeah.
Okay. You shoot in HD?
Yeah.
Okay. So should cut pretty nicely as long as you get it relatively flatly lit. Now the one thing you can do with your green screen light that spill. So remember, I did a lot of work to place this light so that it didn't hit the background. You care less in green screen because some light that slops back there just lights it up, and then you use it to balance out the overall lighting of the green screen if you're going to do an interview in here. Okay. I would always try and keep my subject 6 feet off of a green screen. So you're a foot too close to the wall back here. The reason is the green wraps around. Okay, that if you think about it, I mean, this is not rocket science, but if we take, I'm just going to demonstrate real fast. So tell me your name again.
Abby.
Abby. Let's all look at Abby's face real fast. So Abby got green on the side of her face next to the green screen, right? Everyone notice that? Did you feel it? Here we show it again, right? Nice, warm, and then as soon as I do that, there's that big green kick that comes up on. You can probably even feel it. Yeah, right? So green, so that causes two problems. Problem one is it'll be harder to pull the key because now she's got this green in her face, and you got to tweak your key around that. Number two, green looks really bad on people. It's a color that people are when they are sick or when they're from Mars, right? So green is just like not a good people color. And color theory, I know just enough about color theory to get into trouble. So there's tons of great learning on color theory, and we can talk maybe a little bit about some of it. But green, bad on people. So you want to try and pull them far enough off that it doesn't get into their hair, particularly light hair like yours. It'll really cause problems pulling a green screen key. You get somebody with dark hair, it will be less reflective. It won't eat into it. And so you have some fewer problems pulling the key. Help you? Yeah. So 3-point lighting is a good basic starting point, right? Some people do, and you can play with this, and we probably should since we have time. So a lot of different ways to think about this stuff, depending on the light sources you have. We're going to experiment with a couple of things. Try and keep some things the same and some things different. We'll keep the key light. Let's try a little different edge for a second. I'm just going to hand hold this in. So we have that nice, sharp, hard edge from the little Fresnel, right? From this backlight. Now, what would happen if we substitute this guy? There we go. Okay, off that goes. And so there's a lot of different things going on there. What's everyone seeing? Do you want to flip that around? Yeah. I'm going to pan it off for a second, right? So that's her, no edge. I'll bring it on. So the nature of it different for anybody? Can anyone else see? If I turn this back off, I turn this back on. So look at all she gets all this lovely sharp highlight that really makes her jump off the wall, right? With this light. Okay, but with this light, it's different, right? Well, first of all, it's blue, and the blue makes us all go, oh, why is it blue? Okay, and that's because this is a daylight fixture, and these are tungsten. That ties into this 56K, 32K color theory stuff. Watch the first class. I got into it way more. So, and I said, when you're mixing colors, when you're mixing light temperature, you got to be careful because stuff gets ugly real quick. I look at this and I go, ooh, yuck. There's nothing about this that Martin likes. I would like it better if I did that with it, right? Because at least this is like something that makes the depth of the room stand out better. Okay? Again, blue light feeling like it's further away, red light feeling like it's closer up. Purely the way the human eye works. And so I can play with color temperature to manipulate space, right? But the other thing about this source, if we forget about the fact that it's blue, real hard to do, I know, and we just say it's bigger and it's softer because it's got this fabric on it, right? And the source is this size. You know, what, 1.5 feet by 2 feet, whatever. That size of that source, just like this key light over here, wraps around. It kind of goes all around her face. It starts to get around in front of her face, etc. That's why when I take this away, let our eyes reset and then pop this on. See, not much of this light gets to the front of her face, right? It's really just hitting the edge. I need a new switch here. Well, 20-year-old light. I guess I should get a new switch. So there you go. You can see how it's a little bit of it's going down the front of her sweater. But for the most part, it's sharp and it's really not coming around to the front. So all it's doing is providing separation or creating another plane. Okay? And again, you're trying to create lots of planes. So this is a basic 3-point setup. Now let's get into some more interesting stuff. I want more drama. Okay, so watch your foot, sir. Don't let me hit you. I'm going to move the key way out of a traditional space and put it way over here. And I'm going to get rid of all this fill. You want to flip that back around? So now she's got a lot less front light, right? Way more dramatic feel. That light would be further away in my ideal world, but I don't have the space to do it. And now I'm going to bring in the solid. So now instead of her having... Watch the shadow side of her face change, right? You can see both sides of her face. Now, I bring the solid in. Now I don't have much of anything on this side, right? There's like a lot of shadow, a lot of darkness. Okay, she is now a dark scientist who was selling nukes to some foreign power.
We're suddenly transformed ourselves into a fictional film.
Right, we're in a fictional film, exactly. That's a possibility too. Okay, so bam, that's that. Now, do I need this edge? It's a question we're going to ask. Oops. I'm going to make this go away. right? So now there's nothing happening on the background or on her edge. Let me see what that does. I'm going to make it go away altogether. The reason I want to do that is twofold, because typically in a three-point setup, you keep your key on one side and you keep your backlight or your edge light on the opposite side. So that light's been working on that side. Backlight's always been on this side of her. Okay. And right now, where that key light is, it's actually creating a almost a bit of edge on her already, right? So let me come up front. This is going to answer your key light or your eye light question. You don't have. Is there power on this side of the room?
No.
Is there an extension cord in this world?
Yes.
Okay, so if I look at Kyler is very moody at the moment, exceptionally moody. Can't see much of her face or what her eyes are doing or anything like that. And it's really, yeah, there we go. That'll get us there. Now, if I had a dimmer, I would use it, but I don't. So watch your eyes. Okay, and then this is going to be made real small. Make it as tiny as I can, really. Still get some light out of it. I'll try and hide it right by the camera. Am I out of your frame?
No.
About there? Okay. And then, okay, this will be bright. Wang. Okay, that put big flares in her glasses, right? Nope, not bad. Short side. Gotta love short side. So. Very good. This would be a potential detective film trick, like a film noir, very moody. But a lot of times, people get this source down so small, because really the goal of it is to just get the eyes to, your eyes are really reflective sources. And if you can just get the eye to sparkle, you can avoid kind of putting anything else in the background. And I don't know if you can take your glasses off for me for a second. So just look at her eyes for a second. See that nice little sparkle in the center of her eyes? Gone, right? Boom, back. So the eyes really are the window to the soul. And it's that little sparkle that lets you know that there's somebody in there, and you get to see whether they're soulless or they're good. And so if you look at a film, you will notice this used a lot by folks in the movie business. It's often a very romantic technique, and a lot of times, if this was back in a regular position instead of so far to the side, you'll see a lot of guys take a small light and have that light out there as a big source, and then put one small direct source like this in that same area, so that the sparkle comes from the same place, okay? Because that would be what you would experience if you were outside in the sun or looking at people. So I encourage you to sort of look at folks' faces and study them a little bit as you go about your week, and go, oh, so that is what light looks like on people's faces, because it's something that we tend to not appreciate. We tend to just look at the person and not reflect on it. And part of the skill of doing this is learning how to see that stuff. So this is an eye light. It's also called an obi, after the person who invented it. And you can put your specs back on if you want. And there are a lot of so with basic 3-point lighting, you get everything. It's a key, it's a fill, and there's a backlight, and then you're somehow light in the background. That's all there is. Now there are literally 1,000 ways to do each of those things. Okay, so we've used this light. I could just as easily have taken this big bounce card and put it here and bounced that light into it and done the same thing. Created a big soft source, indirect soft source. And so when you walk into a space, how do you play with what you've got? Let's talk a little bit now about thinking about this whole thing being outside. Okay? and we have one light source. It's the sun, and I want to get 3 points of light onto a person. Sun is so powerful it will overpower everything. There's no fixtures that I have that can be useful in overcoming that. All I can do is moderate what's going on. So if I think about the sun being directly in front of you, that's what I get. That's your typical snapshot on the cliff as you look at some mountain thing. The sun is bright, blah, blah, blah. Or conversely, the sun is directly behind the person. They're so dark you can't see their face, but you can see whatever's behind them really well, right? That's common problems. Has everyone had a selfie experience like that? Am I correct? That's okay. So in an ideal world, we're going to try and get the light over and around, either here. I like working with daylight about here on people. Somewhere really high if I can achieve it. Unfortunately, this is not the sun, but it's as close as I can get. And now, if I have that going and I want to make color look a little better, I will do this. It's a really easy way to now make an image that I can. Is that in frame? Yeah, okay, I'll cheat. About you there? Even further. Okay. So that helps. And then take a couple of these if you want. Right, so we can do it like that, right? There's all kinds of, because if I'm only showing her from the waist up, right? So now if we think that the sun's back there, but I've got a nice dark background, thinking that that's the shadow side of a building or shadow side of a woodland. She's separated from the background by the sun. This is great because if I'm doing a 20 or 30 minute interview, the sun doesn't change much relative, right? If I'm looking at her straight on, the sun moves a lot in 20 minutes, a lot more than you think, okay? And then I can just take some bounce and bounce it back up. If it's cloudy outside, all to the good, right? Because that's just like scrim, diffusion on any of these lights. It softens it up and makes it easier to deal with. So you can take the concepts of 3-point and think about it and take it outside, and the sun's your key. Where do you want it? How am I going to bring some fill in, right? A lot of times you don't try and work in backlight because it's too hard and it's not really natural outside. How many times do we have two suns on this planet? Never, right? So if you look at a science fiction film, they have two suns on the planet, I bet you there will be two shadows. They'll come from different places. If you dig out some old movie from somewhere that's a science fiction thing and they have two suns, they'll show two sun shadows in different areas. But the technique of 3-point lighting can be replicated in every setting. It's the basic way of thinking about how to light an interview, not the basic way of thinking about how to light for a dramatic piece. For a dramatic piece, the saying is we light spaces, not faces. Okay, but here we're lighting a face. That's the goal. It's to light a face.
What if we go to like a house and we don't have any of this?
You don't have any of this?
Like, are we allowed to check this stuff out?
Generally, students don't check out the soft lights.
Okay. So that's a really good question. How do we make lights problem solving? This is our last question on the list. Excellent question. There are a lot of light sources in the world. I don't know if you've walked around. All of you have a cell phone, I bet you. The cell phone has a flashlight. It's kind of a cool light. Very convenient. Easy. It's daylight, oddly. Color temperature. If you are in a house, some of my favorite tools for working in a house when I didn't have any money was a translucent shower curtain. So let's say I have the sun coming through a big window, really bright window south facing, right? and I want to do an interview in this spot, and I don't want to look through the window, but I want to use that window as my key light. And, I've sat there, and I know it's super bright. The sun just comes pounding through, right? Get a shower curtain, one that's, clear but fuzzy, looks like wax paper or something, you know what I'm saying? Just take some tape, some packing tape, whatever you happen to have, duct tape, tape it up to the window or hang it over the curtain rod, whatever you will not get in trouble or destroy for doing. This is a basic rule. That becomes a big, soft, attractive source that will look really good on people, okay? Then I've used white sheets, emergency blankets. Can they check out the bounce fills?
Yes.
So you can check these out, okay? And so that's a starting point. Does your mom or dad have a work light, like for working on a car in the garage or under the house, or do you have a crazy uncle who you can borrow some stuff from or whatever? Anyone who's mechanical almost certainly is going to have one light because you need light to work on stuff, right? And there's tons of regular sources. Most of the work lights you're going to find are going to be tungsten sources. Okay, that's important because if you have a big daylight source like this wonderful a shower curtain window, you don't want to mix in a tungsten source against it. Okay, it'll look weird like that blue light looked. She was like, well, this doesn't make sense together. There are ways to get around it. That blue gel would be one of the options of doing it. But again, like you said, you don't have that. So some of my favorite lighting setups have been where I did not have what I needed to make it look good. Mirrors are great. This stuff right here, which I brought in, I'm not going to pull it out because it's so big. It's a piece of insulation, foam insulation you get at Home Depot. It's shiny on the other side, and it's super reflective. It's worth pulling out. Watch out. Let me step over you. Watch your back. This is great stuff outside. I mean, look how much light it's throwing, right? And that's bouncing off a soft light. Look what I'm throwing on the back wall. I mean, think about the sun hitting this and how stupidly bright it is. Because it is. It's like if you get the sun not bouncing off this and you're shooting something on anywhere. Mirrors are great. This stuff is great. It's almost too powerful because it can really. I mean, look how much light just bouncing back up into that corner, right? Nothing. It's a lot of light. So. Sheet of this is like $10. So, and you take that or that bounce fill, and that's your fill side. I mean, there's a lot of ways to work light in from different spaces. Okay, so that's that world. Now, in-house proper, right? Say you're filming at twilight or at night, or you're not playing a window. Okay. You have all of the light fixtures in the house. If I were you, I would turn off every fluorescent light that you have in the scene. And you'll be surprised how many there are. There's probably one in the center of your kitchen. There's probably one over the sink. There's probably one hither and yon. Okay, LED lights that are in lamps are going to be a lot better at being the proper color temperature. They may have a little bit of green in them because LEDs tend to have a little bit of green spike, but fluorescent lights tend to be all over the place in color temperature. Like if we walked out and metered each one of these lights out here, you'd find one that's 48 and one that's 43 and one that's got a big green spike, and they're hodgepodgey. It's because the bulbs get replaced and the bulbs aren't the same and da-da-da. So turn off fluorescents. Use the incandescent lights you have in the house, whether that's the lamp over the kitchen table. Take a lamp from another room and take the shade off of it. I mean, I've done all these things. Ask permission, blah, blah, blah. And then sometimes the lamp shade itself will produce perfectly good light. You might have a lamp that you think is a good lamp and it produces enough light, but it's not bright enough for you. Go to the store and buy a big bulb. You know, if it's got a 40-watt bulb in it, and it'll take a 100-watt bulb, go get a 100-watt bulb. I mean, the bulb's $2, right? So that's a possibility. Guys who do this for a living all the time take stuff and make lights. Whether it's Christmas tree lights, I mean, I've seen guys take 2 handfuls of 100 Christmas tree 100 count lights on a string, put them in a big pile, and that's the key light, because that's what they have. Okay? And if you think about it, it's like, well, that could be kind of nice and warm, you know, the right vibe, you know, that could be really effective. Those lights that you see hanging over patios and stuff, the little bit bigger bulbs, those are great. Anything like that will work. So any source will work, and then the trick is typically do you have enough firepower out of it. That's the real big thing. But the closer that source moves to the subject, so that light's pretty powerful, right? In fact, there was a point where I had it in a spot and I said, I'd rather have it a foot or two further away from you, right? So if I have a light, the rule of thumb is that light decreases or increases logarithmically. So if I have a light 4 feet from you and I move it to 2 feet, it's not twice as bright, it's 4 times as bright on you. So I can take a smaller light, less powerful light I should say, and move it towards the subject, and that makes it a lot brighter, a lot quicker. Sometimes you have to squeeze your frame up a little bit to make that work, but hopefully, you know, based on what you got, it might work. And then think about what the time of days are that you can play with. That's a lot of times that makes a big difference. And just like I was doing black side, right, to make this your shadow side, sometimes you look at a space and it's really well lit from one angle, but then there's a lot of light pouring in from other rooms or something. Close the doors, get some black fabric and hang it over the door. Take 2 coats. I mean, I've literally gotten hey everyone, give me your winter coats. We're putting them over here on the floor. And we'll make a big pile of coats to make a dark spot, because I need a dark spot there. And I don't have any fabric with me. Although I almost always have fabric with me, but there are times where it's, you know, I just need it, right? I mean, I've taken a heavy coat, put it on a stand like that when I didn't have my bounce card, and just slid it in 2 feet away from somebody's face to make a negative. You can do it with kind of anything. And there are a lot of really great tricks, but the thinking is the same. You want to create 3 points of light, key fill back, separation from the background, and then it's like, what tools do I have? And that's kind of, for me, it's the most fun part of the job. It's like, oh, cool, I get to play. I get to make something up. Because I've been doing this for a long time. And, you know, sure, I can roll in and go, and the guys all do it. And it's okay. It's fun. I get paid for it. But it's kind of I get more creative energy out of solving a problem. So, other questions? Okay, that was a big discussion about house lighting in a house. Come way out this way. Okay, great. So now this is showing you the usual problem. Like I've got lights coming in and putting shadows in her eyes, and it's just awful. I mean, it's, you know, because nothing draws our attention to you. It all just, you're lit exactly the same as everything else around you, right? It's kind of flat and dull and not very great. A lot of times I will try and slide someone just forward, come forward just a little bit, keep coming. Okay, so now this light is giving me some top on her. And if I actually move my hand through it, you can see that little bit of light on the top of her head. So that's my edge, right? So now I got to figure out how to put some key on her. The easy way, probably not going to get enough out of this. That's close. I'll be right back. This is where the shiny board gets really cool. So if we can get enough there. So now I'm starting to get something in her face. It's at an unnatural angle because it's coming up, right? You guys, uplight's usually not very attractive on people. It's not a spot where we really see it. If I could sneak it in more there, that's better. So now if your eye line's toward me just a little, crank your body 10 degrees. There you go. Now, take that away, put that in. So now I'm getting some eye light. Is that out of frame?
Yeah.
This is out? Okay, so the interviewer is where I'm at, the camera's where you are, and this is where the light is, and you're talking to me. That's your interview. Bing, just like that. Okay, so really simple. You need one stand, right? And what I did was I eliminated a couple of problems. Even though this light's still kicking in and causing a little bit of shadow on her, because you have some highlighty stuff going on in your hair, right? Yeah. Sorry, I don't know a whole lot about hair, but I know a little bit. And so it's picking up and giving us some separation off that top light, right? And so what I want to do is just give enough light, because if I look at her face, it's just the same tone as the wall behind her, right? It's just blah, not you, but the image, blah, right? So how do I improve that? I improve that by making our eye come in here. And if I just pop a little bit of something in here on her face, now suddenly it's like, oh, okay, I want to look, my eye wants to look at here. Your eye's always going to go to the brightest thing in the frame or the thing that's moving. This is what eyes do. Survival. Oh, look, something's coming to eat me. I should look at it, right? Or that's a sparkly thing there. Maybe that's something I want to go and eat or avoid. And that's just normal, right? So a shiny board like this could work. The gold side, so I don't know if you guys can notice, but the light out here looks a little greener than the light in the other room. Has anyone come upon that? No? Okay, so even the gold side works pretty well here. Some of these may have a silver. They're all gold. So if any of these had a silver, I would preferentially use a silver instead of warming the light up with this. But this doesn't give me quite enough bump. It's okay, but not ideal. Okay, that's a hallway. That's a simple hallway. I would not pick that background. I would pick, so actually if I was filming this space, I would probably try and stand here and show all that in the background, because that's the most interesting part of this room, right? Is that big, nice, cluttered bookshelf, thanks to the word I'm looking for, with all the cameras and stuff. I can't show any of the Captain Fantastic stuff because that's all trademarked, right? The producers will be running out, you can't show that, you can't show that, don't show that, you can't show that. We'll have to blur that in post, don't show that. That's all here for 30 minutes. You're not showing that, right? You're not showing that. No, we're not showing it. Okay. So I would want something that's real neutral like this, but it's interesting. There's a lot going on back there. And then when I bring you up here, right, and light you from this way and bring you, and now actually I may not even have to do too much. I might sneak that shiny card in right here to just throw a little bit of light. And then that's a nice background. And if I can have control of my camera, we're getting into a new world, but if I have control of the camera settings, right, I would auto white balance. I'd come in here and I'd white balance. That would get rid of the green that's in these lights. Okay, make them neutral. Can you all see? I know I'm asking this. I've asked this, but can you tell the difference between? I'm going to turn this off. Okay, so that's white, right? That card's white, right? These are white, in theory. Okay, but our eyes' brains instantly solve the problem, and just the camera's not that smart. The camera knows 32K, 56K, and then white balance in between. So I always encourage people to either white balance, like if I was shooting in this environment, I would white balance. In there, I would be 32K, preset, leave it alone, don't touch it. If I was outside, I'd be 56K, preset. And on these cameras, I bet there's a little, you go in and you find the white balance menu, and there's going to be a bunch of little icons, and one will be a sun, and one will be a light bulb or inside a house or something, and you might have one that's like clouds, right? So those are picking different color temperatures for the camera to see at. Your eye does all that automatically. It's a wonderful thing about eyes. They're very good. Because this light is green, and actually, see, those guys are kind of bluish. This one's got more of a green spike in it, just the teeniest bit. Right at the very end of the tube, you can really see it really well. So when you're with me and I walk into a room and I was doing a location scan, I'm walking around going, I mean, people think I'm a little off, right? But I'm actually looking to see what the light's going to like. And if I had all the time in the world, I'd turn all the light off in here. I would close that blind, because that's daylight, and that'll just mess me up. And I'd drag the 3 lights that were in the other room in here, and I'd light your setup, right? And then we could do it. We could replicate it in here. 3 points of light. And if I was doing that, and I was putting you here and you're there, how would I do this? Okay, you're looking like that. I want you long side. The key would go here. Jose, right? Is that right? Where Jose is. I'd put an edge over here right near the door, right? Edge, keep it out of frame on that side. And the fill would be just a bounce card tucked right in here. And that would be that. Just 1, 2, 3. Just that quick. So I can walk, and the reason to do it this way, with this being the long side, is because then that opens up all that background of the bookshelves, and it creates a whole nother plane. So y'all are welcome to come stand where I'm at. And you can see that there's a...
Can we have people stand where the lights would be?
Sure, Jose, you're the key. Tell me your name. Griffin. If you would stand by the door right next to how to stay safe. Griffin is the backlight. Create an edge. Nice high back. Perfect guy for... And then... what right here, just have the card right here. Would you mind doing it? Being the fill light? Sir?
Just walk over and you be the fill light.
Okay. Right here. Perfect. Yeah, just tucking in. Just like that.
So now say what you are. Jose, what are you?
The key.
Key.
Light. What are you?
Edge or back. Yeah, exactly. Fill.
Okay. Fill, key, and back.
Back, yeah. Key back and fill. That's the traditional key back fill. Key back fill. Although there's all different ways of talking about how lights play and what they... Because I'm showing you one sort of pure setup. There are literally hundreds of mutations. The key light could come more this way. It could go more that way. There's just all kinds of reasons to do it that way. But traditional setup would be key, back, fill. And we do it that way. We pick the key because we want to know where the primary light is. Edge light's opposite. And then the fill light's the least problematic thing to try and sneak in. Okay? And so that's why it comes in last. But I was talking about framing. Why would I pick this? It's because there's a whole other line that's in the background. So like if your gaze is coming this way, right, then not only am I making the viewer look at you, right, but because there's a strong diagonal line running in this way, the background is pointing to you, right? So now I might take my backlight and create some bounce or kick off of that shiny surface back there, just subtle, so that compositional element forces the viewer to look more at you, okay, and even more deeply focuses the viewer's concentration at this nuclear scientist who's talking about whatever. Okay, cool. Other thoughts, questions?
Does it matter what kind of light, what quality of light are the 3?
It doesn't, but you are making a choice. Okay, so traditionally, the key is, well, okay, I'm going to say it a different way. When I was in college, we used hard lights, big Fresnels like this, the light I used on the background, as keys. Okay, and we put a little diffusion on them. And the reason we did that is we needed the amount of light that fixture could produce. These lights are real hot, and I describe it as volume. And that's kind of hard for some people, but I want a light with a certain amount of volume, like how loud, if you think of it that way. But for me, it's just the volume of light. What's my f-stop going to be when I meter here, right? And I may want a fairly small aperture or wide open so that the background gets soft. They know this stuff?
No, it's all new.
Okay. So This is where camera and lighting overlap each other. Okay, you know there's a control on the camera called the iris or aperture. You guys know this much at least, right? And it makes it brighter or darker, right? That's what it does. If you change nothing else, you change the aperture, you make it brighter or darker. If you make it brighter, okay, you are essentially moving little shutters inside the lens and allowing more light in, more light in, more light in. Okay, there's some stuff about, I'm not going to get into lens theory because it's way too deep, but the more light you're allowing in, okay, and the better way to say that is the smaller the number the aperture is. In other words, an f2.8 or an f2 being there instead of up at f16, which is, what you might see outside, what you might film at outside. Okay. By being having the lens more open, I wish I brought my lenses. I could actually show you. Do you have a still lens? Yeah. A still lens would do it. So by opening that up, you allow more light in, and you shallow up your depth of field. Okay. What does that mean? Shallowing it up means that there's only. There you go. Let's do it this way. Just let everyone. Yeah, great. So here, come on, sneak in. This is not. Can everyone see in the hole? Right. If I turn this, right. So you see the metal shutters moving in the middle. Everybody. Cool. Take a look. Right. So when it's that way, I'm letting in very little. Here for the camera. Very little light. A whole lot of light. Right? Makes sense. It's just you're opening and closing the door. There's nothing rocket science about it. But with it very closed like this, instead of light coming in, from all angles, you're squeezing it down to a little point, and so it's sharper when it hits the focal plane of the camera. When you got it wide open like this, there's light coming in from everywhere, and it's all confused. It's literally called the circle of confusion at the focal plane, and there's a spot where you see sharp focus, and that's what we would determine as acceptable sharpness to our eyes, right? And anything less than that looks out of focus, or as I would say, it looks soft. Okay, looks soft. And so when it's open like this, I'm letting in a lot of light, and then the space behind the subject. So if I'm sharp focus, there's an area in front of me and behind me that is in acceptable focus, that will look in focus. And if I'm at f16, that space can be to infinity and to 6 feet in front of me. Okay? If I'm at f2.8, that might be 8 inches in front of me, and it might be 4 feet behind me. So now everything that's behind the subject by 4 feet or more gets progressively more out of focus. And that, again, makes your eyes go to what you want them to look at. So I'm using composition, using light, using focus. I can use motion to make the viewer look, to manipulate the viewer to look where I want them to look. In the end, that's what you're doing. Interviews, it's really simple, it's static, it's not a lot going on, but you're using light and you're using composition and focus to make people look where you want them to look. That's it. That's what I do for a living. It's really cool. So, other questions? Good? No? Y'all have had enough? Your brains are overloaded?
Well, it's about 5 more minutes.
Okay, great. If you got a question, hit me. Otherwise, thanks so much for your time.